Welcome to another episode on our channel. Today it's about customizing. Some time ago I customized a male medieval knight, and I didn't really want to do a female medieval knight. I think they look a little too bulky, but the female Vikings I thought would look really good. And so I started looking at the internet, at photographs that would help me kind of conjure up in my head what kind of image I would want for my female Viking. You can look at historical enactments with Vikings in them and professional photography places like Shutterstock that may have some good images of wonderful outfits that you could come up with. And so that's where I started. I then had a Bison female body. That's probably the most expensive thing that you'll have when you do customizing it, your body. If you decide to go with a high-grade body like a Bison, that's going to cost you a bit. And in the end, I really didn't need this high-end body as long as I had a body that had a pretty good midsection attached to it. I didn't know I was going to cover the joints with clothing when I started, so really no need for a Bison body for this figure, but I didn't know what I was going to do at first. So I basically noticed that with Vikings, one of the favorite colors used is brown. Silver is also a very common color, but brown is probably the most common that I've noticed. And so I started by looking for, well, what am I going to put on underneath everything? And I found a brown pair of pants and a brown shirt on eBay. Got that. The shirt actually covers the midsection, so I folded it inward to where it's straight here and it's showing her midsection rather well. And then I thought, okay, with the Viking knights, they do have armor, and the armor that's available to us are basically medieval knight armor. And Toy Anxiety is a nice company that sells 1/6 scale loose parts, and I was able to find some wonderful shoulder armor, bracers or forearm armor, some hip armor here. I actually had a gold piece like this, chest armor, and didn't like it because it covered your midsection. I worked so hard to get that midsection to show. This didn't make any sense. And so I ended up with this gold piece that matches everything. I cut it, and then I put some material here to make it, it was straight. The cut was fortunately very straight, but the material made it look even straighter still. But when I put it on her, it makes her look too bulky. And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to do a female medieval knight. They look way too bulky for my taste. So it was going to be a Viking. So I ditched this idea. By the way, if you do use stuff like this, it will come with string on the side, and sometimes the string is out. And getting it on the body, you literally sometimes have to take the string out. Getting the string back into the little loopholes that are on these pieces is almost impossible, because you can see the ends of the string, they fray horribly. Getting this to fit into the tiny little holes is impossible. You got to use a needle. So I end up threading this through a needle, and you kind of say, how do I thread something that's frayed like this into a needle? I'll explain that in a bit if I can show it to you again. The frayness there, it looks like a duck foot more than anything else. But I'll put a needle on this one and a needle on this one and thread them alternately until they're through the last loopholes and then tie it up tight. But basically, if it's frayed horribly, or you start out with a pretty clean cut piece, it's going to fray anyway. So the best thing you can do in terms of getting this into a needle that actually will fit through the loophole is to get a few frays into the hole of the needle, push the thread down, try to get a few more frays in there, push the thread down, try to get the rest of the frays in there, and then pull the string through. It's quite an ordeal to do, but it's the only way to get this string back into the actual outfit. Otherwise, you're using regular string. But if you want to use this string, that frays horribly. All right, get it here. If you want to get it this end, you're going to have to do it that way. So that's one thing I've learned. But I decided I am not going to go with this. It's too bulky. So I kept her in the brown pants and the brown shirt that was tucked in. I kept out of this set or pieces, I kept the not shoulder, but the hip armor. And of course the shoulder armor and the forearm armor. Then I looked at the feet and I said, well, what am I going to do here? You know, it doesn't look cool with just pants and basically shoes. But in some of the photographs of Vikings, you've got the fur around the feet to keep the person warm. So I had fake fur. I just cut it into 2 even pieces about yay high, and I super glued it in the back together. So it's not stuck to the pants or anything like that, but it slips on rather nicely to the leg. And then I thought, well, it's kind of just like a cylinder. It looks too flat, you know, uniform. And so I took some thread that wouldn't show, and I really started tightening it up in the back with a needle and thread, and got it as tight as I could in the back. And then I basically took a little strip of leather and put it around the top and super glued that in the back. And, you know, how do you do that? Well, it's nice if you have someone you know in the car upholstery business or any upholstery business who has scraps of leather that they no longer need, and they're willing to give it to you. And we happen to, my husband and I know this one gal. She's wonderful. She's done some reupholstery for us in the past, and we've developed a relationship with her. But we walked away, or my husband walked away with probably about $150 of leather. And she was just going to give it to him. He said, please at least take $20 for it. And she did. So plenty of leather. So I have brown, really skinny brown strips here, one here and one here. So what I typically do when I'm working with leather is I have this piece of wood. I put the leather on there. If it doesn't have a straight piece, I'm going to use a ruler, like a metal ruler, and I'm going to make one side very straight with a X-Acto knife. Cut it enough so it's straight. If you try to do it with scissors, it's never going to look straight. This is the best way, believe me, to do it. So I cut one end that's straight. I move it just a little bit, and I cut another piece that's straight. And now I have a piece long enough that I can cut in half and put around the top of these furry boot-like things. So that's a nice trick. And that really, if she didn't take the $20, which we forced her to do, it wouldn't have cost anything. And I also used it on something else on her that I'll show you in a bit. But let me just get this out of the way. All right. So I have the fur here. And then I noticed that with the Viking females that sometimes they have something over their shoulders to keep them warm as well. And so I had a piece here, another piece that matched this. And all I did was I notched it out. So it would fit around her neck like this. Yeah. See if I can get it here a little bit better. I could have done a better job at notching it out more evenly, but yeah, it worked out well. I also put the head sculpt, I put the hair in a ponytail because I didn't really want the hair to be flying all over the place. This happens to be Gal from Wonder Woman. This is not the Hot Toys version. It's a knockoff, but it's a pretty good head sculpt. And I thought, oh, that'll be my first Viking female. So I think she looks pretty good. So we've got the brown pants, the shirt that's tucked in up to show her midriff. We've got some hip armor. We've got some shoulder armor. We've got some forearm armor. We've got fur on the, to kind of represent boots or warmth, and replicated up here to keep her warm at the top. And now it's accessories. And, you know, bows and arrows were used back then, so I thought for this one, let's do a bow and arrow. So my husband came up with this idea. This is a Q-tip, a longer one. So you just take that cotton off, you stain it. This is, before you stain it, hot water to get it to bend enough so that you have a bow. And then you stain it, and then some substantial string that you use a slip knot. And once that's in place at the top, you super glue it in for tightness. And then you do the lower one and super glue it in place. Boom, you have a nice arrow. I mean, bow. I already had a bunch of arrows. I've been kind of wondering, when would I ever use these things? So I have like 4 of them. And I thought, oh, yeah, if I'm going to give her a bow, I'm going to give her some arrows. And then I need a quiver, all right? So as I took that fur thing off, this is slipped out of view, so let me try to get back into view. She does have a quiver and bow and arrows in the back. Now, the question is, how do you make this? I didn't have a quiver, but I didn't want to buy a quiver. And so I thought, what could I use to make into a quiver? And I saw 2 different types of quivers in these photographs. One was circular, and I thought, well, you know, if I took a marker or pen and I took this thing off, you know, this is nice, and you know, it's got a nice shape to it, except for this part here that you clip on. But I could take that off, paint that little part black. And the arrows should be able to fit fine into this thing. There you go. That would have worked. Maybe not as nicely as the one I have here, but it would have worked. And so round was a thought, but then I really wanted more rectangular. And we happen to have like 3 of these. These are garage door openers, actually 4 of them. One was really chewed up by a Rottweiler. And so my husband took that thing apart. So start out like this, with this at the bottom. And so he took it apart. So this is one part. The other part is much longer. This was too short for a quiver. the arrows really wouldn't look good in this. It's too short. But the other thing was too long. So I asked him, could you trim it down? He said, yeah, he could. And so with that part, after taking the computer piece out and the battery, he cut it down. And then I said, it's really too wide. Can you cut a piece off here? And he was able to do that. And so I ended up with basically the right shape, the right size. And what I ended up doing is I just super glued into place leather over this piece. And then I put a strap of leather to hold it in place. All right. So this is kind of fallen a little bit off. So let's pause for a second. Let me get her resituated, and then I'll talk a bit more about her. So we are back, and I have her on a turn tray. Just repeating again, brown pants, brown shirt, tuck the shirt in so we could see her midriff. We got several pieces. That was eBay, the brown pants and brown shirt. Got several pieces from Toy Anxiety, a 1/6 scale loose company. It got the shoulder armor, the greaves, the forearm armor, the hip armor. I did get a longer version of the chest armor, cut it, decided it didn't work. Gone. Had some fake fur, made that into coverings for over her shoes to look more like boots, kind of repeated it over her shoulders to keep her warm. Had some arrows that were lying around and decided, okay, this gal is going to have a bow and arrow. The bow was made out of a very long Q-tip that was stained and bent with heavy string that was super glued to each end. The quiver was made out of all things. A garage door opener, the longer piece, that was cut down to make it a little bit shorter so the arrows would fit in it nicer. And then it was also too wide, so cut down here. And then leather put around it so it would look nice. And the skirt also got from Toy Anxiety, the 1/6 scale loose company. And I think she looks great. The head, Gal Gadot. So I got her from eBay. And who better to start with than Wonder Woman for a Viking. So anyway, let's turn around and see her from different angles so you can see the bow. And the skirt, it looks like it's leather. I know it's not leather, but it looks good. I got that from, like I said, Toy Anxiety. The strips on around the fur, you can't really see it's been super glued back there. It looks really nice, I think. The quiver looks great. And the arrows, like she's reaching back to grab an arrow. I think that's cool. So the armor and the colors, I think all work for me. The fur complete the look, the accessories, the bow and the arrows and the quiver. Again, that's just icing on the cake. She looks great. So we'll pause now and we'll get some tighter shots from here on up and then do a real close-up, a good close-up on her head. So anyway, so we're back and she looks absolutely stunning, I think. This is a great pose for someone who is a Viking female who's using a bow and arrow. She's reaching back for an arrow. And I think, like I said, she looks stunning. So we'll just do really quickly go around so you can see a few more details. Her hair, again, is in a ponytail, so it doesn't cover everything up. You want to see some things. Her hair is very bushy. So there's the quiver that I made with the help of my husband, and the arrows that I had lying around, and of course the fur that was lying around, the fake fur, and the head sculpt that was obtained through eBay, the face and body, I think I got it through Amazon, and the armor, and yeah, pretty much the armor and the skirt from Toy Anxiety. And let's see if I'm missing it. Oh yeah, the shirt and pants through eBay. So yeah, she looks great. We'll get a close-up of her face now. Here's a good close-up of her face. She's not a Hot Toys head sculpt, but she's very, very good. So yeah, love it. Here's one last look at our figure. I hope you've liked what you've seen and are encouraged to do more customizing in the future. It really is fun and I think very rewarding at the same time. So I hope you've liked what you've seen. If you have, consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. In the meantime, everyone, have a great day. But I am going to show you one more Viking that we'll talk about next time. All right. Take care, everyone.